Good day, everyone. Today, I am going to continue the report of Group 1 on periods and movements in literature. Flash on your screen is the later and or modern periods of literature. Now, my report focus is on modern period, which spans from 1914 to 1945, and the post-modern period, which spans from 1945 and onwards. Now, these are the later and or modern periods of literature: the Enlightenment, the Romanticism, the Victorian era, and my report, which is on modernism and postmodernism periods. Modernism. The significant literary works on this period are The Road Not Taken, and Death Shall Have No Dominion, and Insensibility. Now, these are just the significant ones, and famous authors, or one of the famous authors during this period, are Robert Frost, Wilfred Owen, and Dylan Thomas. Now, the foundation of modernism is it is a period in literary history which started around the early 1900s and continued until the early 1940s. It was influenced by worldwide industrialization, the First World War, technological advances, changes in culture and society, and the transition into the 20th century. Modernist writers rebelled against clear-cut storytelling and formulaic verse from the 19th century. They experimented with new forms and expressions which we can say that are really modern. Now, its characteristics is that modern literature is characterized by a self-conscious break with traditional ways of writing in both poetry and prose fiction writing. It often involves fragmented stories, which reflect the fragmented state of society during and after World War I. Now, to conclude, this period spanned from the late 19th to mid-20th century. It was characterized by a focus on rationality, progress, and individualism. Modernism emphasized universal truths and objective reality. Now, one example for this is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Is it is focused, or its theme is making choices and the consequences of those choices. Now, this is the universal truths or objective reality that we were talking. The poem uses the metaphor of two roads that diverge in a wood to represent two directions in life to follow. The poem suggests that the speaker is haunted by the choice he did not make, which he imagines as the road less traveled. The poem also implies that the small choices we make every day can have big impacts on our lives. Postmodernism. Now, the significant literary works from this period includes, but is not limited, is The Infinite Jest, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and Waiting for Godot. Famous authors during this period includes David Foster Wallace, T.S. Eliot, and Samuel Beckett. The foundations of this period is that which followed modernism, reaching its peak in the 1960s. It initially emerged as a mode of discourse on literature and literary criticism, commenting on the nature of literary text, meaning, author, and reader, writing and reading, which is the main components of the literary criticism of today's time, which may involve literary discussion, literary analysis, and literary interpretation. Now, if arranged, literary discussion goes first, which is described as a discussion or debate in which numerous people share their views and opinions on a specific literary work or issue, followed by literary interpretation, which entails thoroughly reading a work, evaluating its meanings, and delving into why the author chose decisions in the text. It is founded on theory, which is a description of the underlying concepts or methods used to analyze the literature. Now, the highest one is the literary analysis, which is a process of thoroughly examining a text, interpreting its meanings, and investigating why the author took specific decisions. It can be used to describe novels, short stories, plays, poems, or any other type of literary writing which is eminent in the post-modernism period. Influences: the literary movement rose to prominence as a reaction to modernist literature's quest for meaning, considering the significant human rights violations of the World War II. As we can remember that postmodernism started from the 1945, which was in World War II. Now, its characteristics. Postmodernism literature is characterized using metafiction, unreliable narration, self-reflexibility, intertextuality, and often thematizes both historical and political issues. Now, which is apparent on T.S. Eliot's poem, which shall be discussed on the next slide. In conclusion, this period emerged in the mid-20th century and was characterized by a rejection of traditional values. Postmodernism questioned the idea of objective truth and embraced subjectivity, meaning it is more focused on the lived experiences of the subject of the literature, and also focus on relativism and fragmentation, or the different point of views of the personas in the literature. It also introduced elements of irony and self-reference. Now, there are many there are many nuances of expectations and reality, expectation versus reality on our example. So we are here on the critical analysis, and let's consider T.S. Eliot's long poem The Wasteland, which was published in 1922 as a seminal modernist work. The Wasteland powerfully encapsulates the disillusionment following World War I through fragmented vignettes tied to the Grail legend. It depicts a barren world filled with fear and lust, where humanity awaits a sign of redemption, since it is inspired from World War I and also maybe from the World War II. The portrayal of spiritual emptiness in the modern city is not merely a contrast of past and present, but a timeless awareness of both moral grandeur and evil, which is very, very apparent in the first few stanzas or lines of the poem. So as you can see on the screen, this is an excerpt of the long poem. The Wasteland opens with the unexpected assertion that April is the cruelest month, subverting Geoffrey Chaucer's depiction of April as a restorative time in the Canterbury Tales. So this is a comparison of two works from the classical work, the Canterbury Tales. In comparison, the poem portrays April as harsh, its blooming lilacs and spring rain stirring up painful memories, the warmth of winter with its snow concealing the ground, and past recollections. So those were the um, not so good lived experiences of the personas in in the in this text. And life resembling dormant bulbs beneath the earth seems preferable. Now, what I have just read is a direct translation of the first few lines of the poem. So let me read it to you. April is the cruelest month, breathing lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, steering dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Now, what we can get from that reading is that, especially in the line Earth, especially in the line Winter kept us warm, covering Earth in forgetful snow. So the snow here refers to the aftermath of the war, where there were many, or the land was devastated and was covered by snow. So it's like forgetting something through through the covering of the snow. Now this something maybe our emotions, anxiety, depression, the resentment of war. And that concludes my report on modernism and postmodernism. Now, these are the team members of Group 1, and I am your reporter, June Arthur A. Binaya. Thank you for listening.